Welcome to Chief on Board, the podcast that celebrates the journeys of successful women in leadership and board roles, both public and private. I'm your host, Marie, and today I'm thrilled to have Anna Chang Catalano with us. Anna is an accomplished business leader with over 40 years of corporate experience within energy, chemical, oil and gas, and more than 2 decades of public board services. She currently serves on boards of companies such as HF Sinclair, Front Door, Ecovist, and Hexion. Anna's story is one of ambition, adaptability, and resilience. From establishing Amoco's marketing presence in China to leading BP's global marketing strategy, her career journey is nothing short of inspiring. Today, we'll discuss how to transition from aspiring to be on board to taking actionable steps towards leadership. Anna, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for the invitation. I'm really excited.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's our pleasure. Anna, your career journey is incredibly inspiring, from your early days in marketing at Amoco and BP to becoming highly sought after board director. Please share your career evolution and what led you from corporate world to boardroom.
Careers are always interesting and impressive when you're looking backwards, Marie. When in the process of doing it, it's not easy and it's not nearly as straightforward as it might look when you're looking in retrospect. But thanks for your kind comments. So I started right out of college. I had a degree from the University of Illinois in business administration, a bachelor's. And my first job was in sales at Amoco. And I called on gas station dealers and I sold tires, batteries, accessories, lubricants. It was sales the old-fashioned way, calling on gas station owners. And I learned so much about business, about people, about what makes things work, what makes things not work. And those early days were probably some of my most important in terms of business lessons that I learned. Amoco was a company that did a great job of moving people from line operations into functional roles. And so I spent many years moving from one to another. And probably the one role that was most important in my career was my first overseas assignment when I got to go to Beijing, China in 1995, open up Amoco's marketing and refining office there. That really changed my career and gave me a perspective that I never would have had otherwise. And so after I came back from that, and at the time of the Amoco and BP merger, I was head of all retail operations for Amoco in the United States. So real large retail organization covering about 33 states, about the size of McDonald's at the time in the United States, of number of outlets. So it was a great experience. And then you plan on doing everything, and then your company merges with another and all go out the window. I joined BP and I was over in London. I became head of global marketing when we relaunched the brand. We redefined what BP was all about. So that was a wonderful opportunity I had. And then in 2003, I made a decision to walk away. I was 43 years old and decided family needed to come back to the States. My career was great, but I probably wanted to do something different because I wasn't going to go any higher than I was as head of marketing, as a marketing person. And shortly after coming back, we moved to Houston, Texas area where my parents were. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and cancer in the same month. And so career plans go on hold and think about, okay, what's next? It was very important for me to be able to look after my parents. They needed help. So my husband and I built an addition onto our home, moved my parents in, and I made the decision at that time to pivot into a full-time board career. And for the last 20 plus years, that's what I've been doing. And it's been an unplanned but fabulous chapter in my professional life.
Yeah. You held board roles long before it became mainstream, at a time when seeing women in boardroom was rare and even considered taboo. So your early days at Amoco, it's such a powerful reminder of how one bold moment can change the trajectory of your career. And so I love that they gave you that opportunity globally go to China and then have the opportunity for you to take care of your parents at that time.
Yeah, a lot of it's your personal choice, isn't it? You never know what the world is going to throw at you. When I started my career out of college, I never dreamt of what I would be doing now. It is literally one step at a time. But recognizing the opportunities, being open to opportunities, being willing to take the risks, is all a part of what allowed me to do what I'm doing right now. And a real big piece of what I've been able to do, I have to give a lot of credit to my husband of almost 42 years. We got married right out of college. And having a supportive partner along the journey is important for both men and women, especially if you want to have a family. It's really difficult to do alone.
I'd love to dig deeper into your transition to the boardroom. What was the aha moment when you realized the boardroom was where you wanted to be? If you could share challenges you faced along the way that taught you valuable lessons about leadership or maybe decision making and how you navigated through that.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting story, and it's a story that I share with a lot of folks as they're beginning their careers or if they're early on in their careers. And I like to tell it because it just gives an example of the importance of connections. So
Mhm.
very early in my career at Amoco, I got a call one day from a recruiter from a company called Heidrick& and Struggles that's still a huge global recruiting company right now.
Mhm.
And very early in his career as well. And he asked me if I was interested in a position in another company. I told him, I said, you know what? I think things are going really well for me right now. I don't think I'm interested, but I'd love to keep in touch. So next time you're in Chicago, and that's where I was,
Yeah.
please let me know and let's grab a coffee. So certainly the next time he was in Chicago, he called me. He said, hey, I talked to you a few months ago. You want to grab that coffee? I said, sure.
Yeah.
So we really hit it off. His name is Andy Talkington, and he knows that he's in my story. And for the next 20 years, every city I lived in, every city that he knew I was in, if he traveled there, as recruiters do, he called me up and we grabbed coffee, lunch, dinner. I got to know his wife. He got to know my husband. We became very good friends. And as I moved up in the company, he moved up at Heidrick& and Struggles. And when I made the decision to leave BP, he was the first person I called, and he had advanced to board search in his company. He started out, as recruiters do, in junior level search positions, moved his way up, and kept in touch with me all those years. And so it was wonderful. He knew me so well. Your best bet is to be recommended by somebody who knows you really well, who has seen you develop, someone who knows your strengths and weaknesses. And so had I not kept in touch with him over those years, I'm not sure that would have happened because he's the one who put me on my first board in the US. So I was really happy and very grateful for that.
Yeah, I love hearing your journey with Andy. It's a real testament to how valuable relationships can be. A great recruiter, you said it, isn't just someone who can help you find a job. They're your strategic career partner and an advocate. And you said a connector. So anyone looking to advance their career should have a trusted recruiter in their corners. Recruiters give you access to opportunities that may never be posted publicly, right? Insights into market trends and the ability to position you for roles that align with your long-term goals. Recruiters should be a part of your personal board of directors alongside your mentors, your sponsors, and industry peers, whoever that may be. So I think that's awesome. And I love that you built and continue that relationship with him.
Yeah, I think it's important to be top of mind with people.
Right.
A lot of people say, I need to meet a recruiter. So they go to a conference and they hand them a business card and they send them the resume and they think that's it. As in any relationship, if you don't invest in the relationship, it doesn't sustain. You really have to invest in those relationships and not assume that if they knew you 20 years ago, you can pick up the phone and they're going to be right there and willing to do all kinds of stuff with you. So growing together with your professional colleagues is something that I think is really important.
Yeah, you speak of investing in those relationships, right? It's about networking as well. Can you share with us key relationships that have helped you open doors and what advice you'd give those who may just be starting to build their careers? You gave one example about Andy, but what other starting points should the up and comers, if you have any recommendations that would be helpful guiding them?
Yeah, throughout my career, I have been very blessed to have a lot of mentors along the way. I have had different mentors for different things.
Right.
I have had mentors that helped me in my early supervisory roles that taught me the ropes of how you do that. I had mentors who were women, professional women that had children, so that when I had kids, I could lean on them and say, how should I do this? Am I going to be able to do this? And they were here for me for those days. I've had mentors that have helped me understand what directors do and guide the way for me there as well. I have a stable of people for whom I owe so much and without whom I wouldn't be sitting here where I am. Look for help. Find those people who want to mentor you, who want to help you through whatever life stage or career stage you're going through, and don't be bashful about tapping into it.
I couldn't agree more. A CEO client I'm currently engaged with today, she told me the most pivotal moment in her career was nurturing those relationships without realizing the impact it would have down the line. So it wasn't about her asking for something. It was more about just showing up, being curious, and providing them value in return. So I feel it's the best time to start building those relationships first and foremost internally within your organization across different teams. As you mentioned, seek those mentorship, engage in cross-functional projects internally. Strong internal connections can open unexpected doors and really position you for, as you mentioned, bigger opportunities. And there's also network outside, expand outward, leverage your LinkedIn profile, or maybe attend conferences, industry events, and networking meetup. There's so many resources out there to build real world connections to stay on top of trends too.
The name of the game, there's so many people right now that want to get promoted, want to be on boards, want to do all kinds of fill in the blank. I think it's important to make sure people know who you are, but also what you do and what you do well. So it's not just networking and meeting people. It's actually sharing your journey with one another and being willing to help others at the same time they're helping you.
Yeah. You brought up the what did they do well. So for emerging leaders who aspire to board position, what advice would you give them about mastering what they do well in their craft before setting their sights on board roles?
That's a great question because I have so many people that say, what should I do to become a board director? I say the best thing you can do is learn your job. Excel at what you do. I never really knew what board directors did, probably until 10 years into my career. I had no idea. And I never set out to be a board director. I set out to be a good executive and to be a good manager in my organization. And over time, it became evident that there was this other career path that I could do. But it wasn't something I set out to do. So I would say the best thing you can do during your career is just make sure you learn as much as possible. You have the experience, you get different experiences to other people do. I think that's really the most important thing.
I love it. I say the same thing to candidate. It's deepen your expertise, master your craft, whether it's within finance, strategy, governance, or industry-specific knowledge. Become the go-to person in your domain. As you said, boards don't just look for generalists. They seek board individuals who can offer those sharp insights, challenge thinking, and really guide decision-making at that strategic level. So in addition to that, it's not about chasing the title, it's earning the influence, right? And positioning yourself as someone who brings that unique forward-thinking value. When the opportunity comes, you won't just be aspiring to be a board role, you'll be ready for it.
I think that people who really work at honing their craft and understanding things about business that other people don't, based on their experiences, are the most valuable in a boardroom.
Yeah. And I'm going to shift a little bit, breaking barriers for women in leadership. This next question is such a critical topic, and it's a topic in mind for many of my candidates and clients right now. It's about the recent executive order to end DEI efforts within the federal government and the potential ripple effects this could have on universities, private businesses, and beyond. So first, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this decision. And then second, how can we ensure that progress continues? How do we keep the conversation alive and emphasize the importance of inclusivity and equitable opportunities, even in the face of what we're going through right now?
I think it's an important topic.
Yeah.
You know, what I tell people is the worst thing you can do to a great business idea is to give it a 3-letter acronym. Because once it's a 3-letter acronym, it can be turned into a program or an initiative or, unfortunately, people's political agendas. Then it becomes very easy to push it and get rid of it for the wrong reasons. At the beginning of this entire conversation, diversity was all about the importance of having different perspectives in the room, and the value of having different experiences, different perspectives, different opinions in the room when you're trying to solve business problems or any problems for that matter. And I think everyone agreed that if you had everyone that thought the same way, you didn't need everyone in the room, right? And so everyone agreed that when you have different varying opinions, it's a richer conversation, maybe more difficult conversation, but definitely a richer conversation that arrives at a better solution. Unfortunately, we then made it into a program that took off and created all kinds of jobs around it. We gave the impression, whether intentional or not intentional, that this was something you had to do in order to secure, I don't know, government funding, investors, fill in the blank. Once it becomes a program like that, people figure out ways to take advantage of it, to bastardize it, to do all of the wrong things that it was never intended to do. And so then what happens is people say, oh, we should just get rid of it. And so, of course, there are some people saying, oh, great, we don't need that anymore. It was a quota system. We don't need it anymore. But if, first of all, if it was ever a quota system that caused anyone to lower the bar, right. Okay. And so the conversation I'm having with companies now is, let's not talk about it as DE&I. Let's talk about it as what's the value of inclusivity and having different voices in the room. So if you go back to the initial conversation, rational business people and smart business people still agree it's the right thing to do. We have to allow ourselves to continue the dialogue, but in a way that it is not politicized, it's not considered an initiative that stays for a while and we can get rid of it. A good business idea doesn't have a shelf life. It's always a good business idea. I invite people to really get to the heart of the matter when it comes to things like DEI. ESG is the same way. ESG is something that a lot of great companies were doing, all the different things. We gave it a 3-letter acronym and now everyone hates it. You know, I think we need to have real conversations.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. When people hear the 3-letter acronyms like the DEI, ESG, there's rush to dismantle it.
Yeah. Don't name a good idea with 3 letters. History shows it's not a good idea.
Exactly. And let's be real. Change is hard. It's uncomfortable, especially when it shakes up a long-standing name, right? Yeah. DEI means rethinking hiring priorities, leadership structure, workplace culture, which can feel really unsettling to those who are set in their ways or who've long benefited from the way things were.
Right.
And then, like you said, ESG, on the other hand, forces industries to take responsibility for their impact on people and planet, and sometimes at odds with short-term profits. So you said it, instead of asking why people are so quick to dismantle the DEI and ESG efforts, the better question is, how do we reframe the narrative to show their undeniable value?
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you for your perspective. So representation in the boardroom is so crucial. What impact have you seen when diverse voices are included at the table?
I mean, it's always been something that I find fascinating that people don't realize it. So I have been the first, the only, one of one, one of two, one of three, one of 50% women on boards. And there is a difference. And even when I've been the only woman in the room, I know that I change the conversation. I know I ask questions that are different. I know that I think about things that are different. And that's just because I've had a different life experience than men have. So if you were to start out with a room of women and you add one man to it, that's going to do the same thing, right?
Absolutely.
It will change the conversation. And so I believe that as complex as business challenges are today, you are doing a tremendous disservice to your investors, your employees, all of your stakeholders, if you don't have differing opinions around the room that are debating issues. Because business is not like it was 30 years ago. It's not as straightforward, and change is happening faster than ever. And you need to have a lot of different muscles around the room in order to be able to get at the right decision. So it's not always the most comfortable, because obviously when you're with people who think differently, the conversation can be escalated and the disagreement can be escalated. But I believe in being collegial but not comfortable. And I think you need to have enough diversity in the room that not everyone agrees all the time, but you disagree in a good way. And you can certainly do that with professional people.
Anna, it really matters. Candidates ask me all the time, who's on the board? Leadership representation shapes how they see their own career path. When they look at the boardroom and see diversity, different backgrounds, experiences, and perspective, it sends a powerful message. It sends a powerful message to candidates. It tells them, you belong here, your voice matters. Your contributions will be valued. We have so many resources now. Anyone can just go into LinkedIn profile and you could see everyone's positions, who's in the board, who sits in the board. There's so many resources available to see all those information. It's more about not just visibility. It's about creating culture where leadership isn't just a select few, but for anyone with the talent and drive to step up. When boards reflect a mix of perspective, as you mentioned, it really reinforces the belief that real opportunities exist, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In just about every company where I've served on the board, I have received notes, oftentimes via LinkedIn, from employees that say, it is so great to see someone who looks like me, who looks more like me sitting in the boardroom. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. We're all really appreciating that. And it tells us that leadership really means what they say. It goes a long way, much further than a lot of people realize.
Yeah, I love that. So for those starting out in their careers, you've talked about Andy, you've worked with recruiters and executive search firms. What are some of the key qualities and experiences would you say that recruiters you work for look for in board candidates?
I think that one of the important things you need to do early in your career is realize that everything you learn adds to what makes you special. And one thing that I tell a lot of young people is there were times in my career where I took lateral moves. And there were times in my career where other people got promoted before me and I couldn't understand why. And I would get frustrated. One of those times that I got frustrated, I can tell you, I learned something that the other people did not. Be ready to take roles that other people don't want. Recruiters see that. Recruiters will realize who has resilience, who has tenacity, who's not afraid of working hard, who doesn't wait around for the cushy jobs, who leaves their job whenever they're a little bit upset because they think they should have gotten a promotion and someone else did. Those are all things that good recruiters and employers look for in an interview. And I took a number of jobs that were lateral moves. I took one move that was a downward move at the time of the merger. And it's because the new company needed me in a role. You just say, okay, let's see where this leads. And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people who look at a career like mine and say, oh, wow, what a great career. You don't see all the little steps that I took along the way. Right. And not all of them would be steps that you would necessarily believe at the time were really great moves. But every single one of those jobs, I learned something that helps me today.
Yeah, you hit it right on too. Career growth isn't always linear. Right. And having a trusted recruiter in your corner can make all the difference in identifying right opportunities, making smart career pivots, and ultimately reaching the highest levels of leadership. So it's really a partnership built on trust, insight, and shared vision values. Yeah. I've been privileged with working with candidates I placed 15 years ago, and I've watched their career from early leadership roles to continuous leadership to becoming a successful CEO or CFO. It's really important. That's why I say don't just look for a recruiter when you're job hunting. Build that relationship early on and nurture it over time and let it be a key part of your career journey because you just never know where it's going to take you.
Absolutely. And the best recruiters, Marie, you know this, recruiters are people who don't treat their relationships as transactional. Exactly. They treat them as long-term relationships because they know the candidates. The same thing applies when you're the employee and you're growing in an organization. You've got to invest in those relationships, both inside and outside of the company.
My next question is all about personal branding. It's
Right.
becoming more important than ever. So how can, women leverage their unique skills and backgrounds to stand out as strong board candidates?
Well, you said a word there that was very important, and that's unique.
Mm-hmm.
So I always ask people, what is it that makes you special? Is it in your experience that made you different than everyone else people might be looking at for any role? And so I think being a marketing person myself, it was easy for me to realize that. What is it that you bring to the table that nobody else does?
Mm-hmm.
What is the voice that you bring into a room that they need, that they're not getting today? And how are you going to stand out against half a dozen, multiple dozen other candidates that someone's considering for a role? Really understand what you do well, and don't be afraid of letting a recruiter, a future employer know that, and speak with confidence and be able to demonstrate it through your track record.
You have the marketing background. You're very fortunate. A lot of up-and-comers, they don't know that visibility really matters. So I think it's being intentional about their personal brand, engaging in industry conversation, sharing insights on LinkedIn is really important, speaking on panels or joining advisory boards. I think those really help credibility. I feel like that will definitely open doors as well for board opportunities and networking.
They not only help credibility, they build your own confidence. I mean,
Exactly.
the more you get an opportunity to speak at conferences, to talk with people in your industry, the more of that you do, the easier it becomes, and the more you become known for being good at doing it. So there's no shortcuts. You
Yeah.
actually have to do the work. You
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah.
There is no one who's going to assume that you know this stuff if you think about it. So you've got to go out and you've got to let people know.
Yeah. It's becoming more competitive now.
Far
And so it's really owning your story and showcasing your expertise and really positioning yourself in a way that makes everyone else see that. That's key, I think.
It is definitely much more competitive, but
Yeah.
versus 30 years ago, there are so many more outlets that you can demonstrate that. We
Absolutely.
didn't have social media. We didn't
Yeah.
have LinkedIn when we were
Yeah.
starting out, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're not leveraging all those opportunities today, you're missing out. And
Yeah.
because it is more competitive and other people are doing it. So if you're not willing to put in the time, don't sit around and complain down the road that you can't get it, right?
Agreed.
The hard work is what it takes if you want to make it.
Agreed. Agreed. Anna, this conversation has been incredibly insightful. Thank you so much for all your context. But before we wrap up, what final piece of advice would you give to our listeners who are on their journey to leadership?
I think the final advice I would give is don't think that you're doing this alone. There is a world out there of resources within your company, outside your company, colleagues, friends, family friends, parents of people who are your friends of your parents, all kinds of people. Don't be afraid of reaching out and asking for help because nobody does this alone. Absolutely no one does this on their own. Everybody has a lot of people as part of their story.
Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences and journey with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I know this conversation is just the beginning of many important discussions around leadership, influence, and the power of representation at the top. For those listening, please be sure to check out Anna's website at www.annachangcatalano.com and her blog at www.shadesofleadership.com for more of her thoughts and leadership on governance. Thank you all for tuning in to She's on Board. Stay inspired, stay engaged, and take action in your leadership journey. Until next time, thank you. Thank you.